All right, it's time to vote again. So, probably talking about Georgia again. Yes, just like in 2020, the state of Georgia once again serving as an important battleground in the fast approaching midterms. Not only could a close race between Georgia Senator Raphael Warnock and Republican Herschel Walker decide control of the Senate, but Democrat Stacey Abrams faces Republican Governor Brian Kemp in a rematch as she seeks to become the first black woman to serve as governor in U.S. history.
And we are happy to welcome Stacey Abrams back to GMA3. Thank you for being with us, Stacey. And I know you're reading the polls just like we are, and the recent polls have you trailing Governor Kemp right now. So what's your strategy with the last 2 months you have left behind to campaign and convince voters otherwise?
We are behind, but only by a couple of points. And we know that these are polls that are not paying attention necessarily to the growing energy among women and young people. Georgia is unfortunately one of the states with a 6-week abortion ban, and that ban is animating voters. We have seen record number of women asking for absentee ballots early in the process, and we know that we're seeing the same energy on the ground. But we also know that we're a state that is number 9 in gun violence, and that guns are the #1 killer of our children. And Brian Kemp, not only did he pass that abortion ban, he weakened gun laws and cost the state of Georgia $50 million in the loss of one concert. We also know that people are thinking about leaving the state because of the issues that we're facing. Rising house prices, the fact that in the state of Georgia we are sitting on stagnant wages while Governor Kemp hoards money that could be poured into our communities. So my focus is getting back to basics, making sure we're focusing on the fundamentals and using our $5 billion surplus to invest in Georgians instead of giving tax breaks to the wealthy, which is Brian Kemp's plan.
The paper there, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, has you at 79% among black voters. That's a lot of support, but about 10 points lower than maybe Democrats should be in the state. So how do you explain and what are you seeing when it comes to what some are calling a little not as enthusiastic support you're getting with black voters right now?
We know that I am showing strongly with black voters, and what people are reflecting is the fact that I'm specifically talking to black men, as though that's an issue that is a problem. And my response is that, of course, I'm talking to black men. They're an important voter segment in their state. Much like black women and Latino and AAPI voters, they are too often left out of the conversation. And I want to encourage every group to vote. But we also know that black men have been disproportionately harmed by the economic effects of COVID, by the disastrous policies of Brian Kemp. And so I'm being extra assiduous about talking to those voters, because I know that when they hear themselves reflected in our policies, they will turn out. But more than anything, we know that black voters are the least likely right now in those polls to say that they're going to vote. Not that they're against me, but that they aren't certain voting is going to change things. And my responsibility as a candidate is to animate those voters. That's how we've won elections time after time, and I intend to continue to follow that strategy.
Stacey, as we mentioned, another very close and very watched race there in Georgia is the race for Senate. You've got, of course, Democratic incumbent U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock and Republican, and I should mention, very popular UGA legend, football legend Herschel Walker going very neck and neck at this point. Walker is, I believe, a narrow 2-point lead over Warnock. How confident are you that Senator Warnock will be able to hold on to a seat given the stakes?
I am absolutely certain that he can if we get the turnout we need. And going back to TJ's earlier point, you'll notice in that poll that both Senator Warnock and I have similar numbers with black voters. What we both know is that if we turn our voters out, we win. Our responsibility is to use polls as a snapshot, but it is not a prediction. And what we can do over the next 46 days is reach into communities, as Senator Warnock is doing, as I am doing, and where we can, we do it together. But this is a big state, a lot of voters, and we're out to get every single one of them to turn out and get us to victory.
And those voters, do you have a lot still asking you questions, given so much in the news cycle that Roe v. Wade and what happened to the Supreme Court has been, that and look, you've talked about it openly and you explained that at some point in your life you were anti-abortion rights, and you explained your evolution and your friend and how you, through conversations, come to where you are now. But are voters still asking you about that, and you still have some explaining, do you think, to do?
It's actually less about explaining and more about empathy, because there are so many people who have my shared experience. We grew up in the South. We grew up with this religious frame that didn't really engage us in the fundamental conversations of why abortion care and reproductive care is necessary. And so what I have found is that in rooms where you would expect there to be contention, there's really conversation and compassion. Women are excited to have this conversation finally in the open because they know that this is much more complicated than the reductive narrative that we hear. That women who've had miscarriages, women who've had ectopic pregnancies, women who've had to make the very difficult decision to terminate their pregnancies have finally had an opportunity to talk about it and to explain where they come to this decision and why they want this to be a decision they make with their families and their doctors, not a decision made for them by politicians who have no empathy and a very poor understanding of biology.
All right. Well, Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams, look, it's always a pleasure to have you here on the program. A few more weeks to go. I expect we'll be talking to you again. So thanks so much.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.